So, good evening and welcome to the Power Hour Tech Talk on this Wednesday evening, the 25th of September. We are very privileged tonight to have Clint, Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra online with us. And we've also got Karen Bradford online with us from California. So I'd like to just do a quick introduction of Clint's bio before handing over to Clint. And he's going to take us through a very entertaining presentation, I understand. That's definitely not boring. So listen to this. So Clint, Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra, has been a ham since 1994 and found his niche in the hobby, working amateur radio satellites with minimal equipment and telling everyone about it. He has served as a liaison between NASA and the ISS team and schools coordinating amateur radio contacts between the International Space Station and students. He's also orchestrated a wildly successful ARISS contact. Audiences never found his presentations wordy or dull, so I hope that carries through for this evening. And trivia questions are included throughout the session, so you guys are not going to be bored tonight. Clint has also created a support website at work-sat.com. The website is a one-stop shop for all the citations and equipment recommendations and software that Clint is going to speak on tonight. So I'm sure Clint will reiterate that. And professionally, Clint was a sales manager for ADI, Premier Communications Prime, worked for Motorola Commercial Two-Way Dealer for a few years, and a ham radio outlet, which most of us know, HRO, for a few more years. He resides in Jurupa Valley in California with his wife, Karen, and their lab, Huck. So at this point, welcome to the Power Hour Tech Talk, and I'd like to hand over to Clint, Kilo 6 Lima Charlie Sierra, for this evening's presentation.
Good evening, South Africa. Let me make sure. Just a couple settings here. I've only done this 174 times before you. Okay, we are going to share that. Share. More. This is a little commercial timeout here. And do you now have a out of focus slide now on your everybody's screen?
Yes.
Oh, outstanding. Outstanding. All right. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm out on the west coast of the U.S. in California, and looking forward to meeting the rest of you. Sandton Amateur Radio Club. We're going to talk about working amateur radio satellites with low power. But I live in the United States, so I have to put this legal disclaimer up here. So please read this. I'll come back when you're through reading this. This is essentially telling you that everything I'm going to tell you in the next 3 hours might be outdated next week. We might have a new satellite. We might have one that passes away. We might have ISS schedule change on us. Just know this is very fluid and changes all the time. You've got AMSAT there in South Africa. That is a wonderful source for info. And make sure that whatever you're searching the web, that the info you're looking at has been dated for you. I had a Boy Scout master really upset with me 3 or 4 years ago. He had an assemblage of about 400 people, and he couldn't access satellite AO51. AO51 passed away 9 years ago. But if you look on the web for easy to work satellites, there's the info. So my website, we'll hear about your own website. Your AMSAT South Africa is there, and ARIS. We'll talk about all those later. Before we begin, for those of you who are Zooming, I have a couple of housekeeping chores. The restrooms are provided for you. If you just go out the door and down the hallway, you'll find the restroom. And courtesy of Keith, we have a free meal for you this evening. If you go the other way down the hallway and find the refrigerator, anything in there is yours to eat this evening for your meeting. So I'd like to thank Keith, and don't submit any bills, please, to your treasurer. Thank you, Keith, for the food this evening. Okay, you might be able to tell he's wearing a Van Gogh shirt. Let's just have some fun. Let's just have some fun. You all saw this in your newspaper this morning? That is the Mail and Guardian. That's your paper, isn't it?
Oh, Mail and
Front,
Guardian's more UK orientated, but yeah, it's good. Yes.
front page, color photo above the fold. We're lucky here in Southern California. We have Vandenberg Air Force Base in the middle of the state, and we get to see this every 7 to 10 days. This is a SpaceX Falcon 9 going north to south, and we see this all the time. Just glorious images. We can see the separation, just fun things to do. The James Webb Telescope, you've seen images from it. These are just spectacular images, and this is Dr. Jane Rigby's brainchild. She is a astrophysicist of immense intelligence, and I've got a special for South Africa this afternoon. I know Dr. Jane's favorite joke. Nico, would you like to hear Dr. Jane Rigby's favorite joke? Why can't you trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Okay, courtesy laugh. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Very good.
So why can we, this is light years and light years away, this gorgeous, it's been colorized, but this gorgeous imagery. Why in the US can't we do better than this when it's 20 feet away? I don't know. I don't know. South Africa, you're probably ahead of us on this technology. We were all saddened earlier this year. This is a shadow of the broken rotor on our helicopter on Mars. Isn't that spectacular? We had the planet had a helicopter on Mars, Ingenuity. It rode to Mars in the belly of the Perseverance and was only meant to perform up to 5 experimental test flights over 30 days. It performed 72 flights over almost 3 years. And here, the rover Perseverance shot a picture of it, and like most bad traveling visitors, tourist photos, it chopped a head off. But yeah, Ingenuity, wonderful technology from the Earth on Mars. This is not photoshopped. This is a amateur astrophysicist. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. He doesn't work for the government. He works for himself. But that is the ISS against the moon. And of course, the pass like that, he has just milliseconds to get that. But he does this all the time. 3 years ago, we were all watching Perseverance land on Mars. Was this phenomenal? The first picture we got down. Then we went to bed. But for you, it'd probably be mid-morning. But the second picture came down, and
maybe they don't know.
Resolution is a little bit better. That's Bernie Sanders, I think.
Congressman.
Yeah. And then the color photos started coming down. Look at the high resolution image of that on Mesa, Arizona. Okay. And April 1st last year, NASA released a top secret finding, all the lost socks from the dryer. They found them. They're up on Mars. The Perseverance turned its camera around and looked at right at the end of the little arrow there. There's Earth from Mars. That's Mars in the foreground.
McDonald's is everywhere.
Okay, yes, okay. And you got a headquarters right there in Johannesburg, too, for McDonald's. I'm sorry, folks. Keith, again, gave me the microphone for 6 hours. If you go to nasa.gov, I guarantee you will come back with a screensaver or a wallpaper for your phone or your home computer or your laptop. Just gorgeous images. God, is that spectacular? There are human beings on that. My wife and I have seen the ISS fly over us with the naked eye scores of times. I never failed to get excited. Here's a trivia question for you. How many parking spaces are there on the ISS? How many vehicles can park at the ISS at once? Somebody unmute themselves and give me an answer. Anyone?
6.
Add 2.
Wow.
8.
Hey, wow.
Yep, there are 8 ports on the ISS for traffic. They do have to reposition themselves once or twice a month, due to a little bit of atmospheric drag and a little bit of gravity pull. They do have to increase their height every few weeks, but that's not me. Wish it was. That's the Canadian arm. There's the cupola. Just some brilliant shots. Almost all astronauts, no matter the country of origin, are ham radio operators. Here's a astronaut who's actually replacing a coax jumper for us for our ARISS antennas. You're going to hear a lot in the next few years about literally vacuuming up bits of debris at low Earth orbit. This is everything ranging from a screw, a nut, a screwdriver, an electric drill, to the size of a expended booster, all at low Earth orbit. And we want to protect satellites we want to work. We want to protect the China and ISS ships. So you're going to hear a lot about just literally vacuuming up some of the stuff that's circling us at low Earth orbit. 2 of my favorite photos. This is the silhouette of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on her last mission. This is on Expedition 22 during the STS-130 mission. It's coming towards the ISS. The colors, and that we no longer have a shuttle program. This is just a favorite photo of mine. And this one, someone unmute themselves and tell us what this apparatus is, please. Think Apollo 11. Nope. This is the Parkes 64-meter radio telescope down under that gave us those grainy black and white images from Apollo 11. How cool is that? But look right under the focus cabin. Right under the focus cabin, that's the International Space Station, that glint of light.
Oh.
It gets better. It gets better. Look to the right. Look to the right. That's the shuttle Atlantis on its last mission. They just separated 3 minutes ago. So I apologize. I've seen this photo 100 times, more than that. I'm getting goosebumps. Just the history of Apollo, that we no longer have a shuttle program in the United States. This is to me just a phenomenal photo. And I have to thank John Sarkisian of the Parkes Observatory for letting me show this to you this evening. Now, if your significant other says your shack is a little bit messy, just let him or her know. You know, here's the ISS
If it works for NASA.
computer room. Here's the Columbia model. Hey, there's in the circle, there's our Kenwood TMG 710 GA that's used for FM voice. So it gets a little messy, but so your desk, your workstation is. My wife saw this while traveling. That's a little gross. But you know, Sandton is not unaware of messes. This looks like fun. Who are these 2 people, Keith?
Well, that's Philip Z6 PVT on the right and myself on the left, Z6 HI.
Very cool, very cool. So anyway, just let your significant others know, hey, it's all hobby, all for science, all for science. We're just doing some intro work here. Don't worry, we'll start in a few minutes. You have a ham radio outlet, South Africa, HRO, but not the same as the chain here in Southern California. This was a demo day a few years ago. In the foreground, I'm here with my Arrow crossbeam Yagi. It's best if you work these FM crossband repeaters in the sky. It's best if you work them in full duplex mode. That's defined as being able to hear your downlink from the satellite as you key the mic. We don't have a good HT any longer that does that out of the box. The Kenwood THD72A was the last true full duplex. The 75 doesn't do it. The new ICOM doesn't do it. But it's not mandatory that you work full duplex. We'll talk about that later. It's best because you can hear if you're making it into the satellite or not. You can also discover whether you actually stepped on someone. But we'll talk about how you can get by with using just 2 radios or a radio and a scanner. And here is the second setup. This is the elk log periodic, and the gentleman in the background had the speaker up, so the crowd of four there can hear what's going on. Hey, this is the 175th time I've given this. We've been on Ham Nation, we've been on Tom's W5KUB, we've been written up in CQ magazine, and still finding audiences that like this stuff. We're going to talk about ergonomics a little bit later too. The handheld antennas are a little heavy, putting stress on your elbow, wrist, and shoulder as you hold them for that 10 or 12 minutes. We'll talk about ergonomics later. This is just something I built, and I need to thank my wife. My wife bought me a Dremel cutting tool for my birthday one year, so I had to start cutting up something. So now there's two lithium polymer batteries in here, a little fan inside to keep those cool. It now has USB ports on it, but it's insulated. It's got a great handle. You can stick this, put it in your seatbelt in the front car and travel with it really easily. Just a cool little go box. So thank you, dear. That was really cool. That was really cool. Are there any engineers on the call this evening? Any engineers? Two of you. I will sometimes take my egg beater antenna with me to shows, and I'll put it up on a rotator, and I'll call it my souffle antenna. Sorry, Southern California humor. Egg beater antennas are okay for general receiving the ISS packet or slow scan TV on 2 meters from the ISS. They're fine. But your $15 tape measure beam you can build is much more effective in working these satellites than a $300 M² egg beater. Egg beaters are great for starting conversations and general receive, but you want more directionality, more gain, especially to get into one of these satellites. Here's my QSL card at the Los Angeles County Fair a few years ago. We just worked 3 countries with 2 watts. I didn't say cities, I didn't say counties. We worked Mexico, the US, and Vancouver, British Columbia with 2 watts. The guy on the right is not a ham. The guy on the right is so intoxicated. He's looking for the little people in my radio that are talking to us. But this is what turned me on about this. I walked by an AMSAT table about 20 years ago thinking high power, multi-mode radios, it just isn't going to happen. When I found out we could work a few satellites, including the International Space Station, with a handheld radio, well, that still has me excited. In the United States, we have the ARRL, but in South Africa, you have the South African Radio League, which does about the same stuff that our ARRL does. I'm a type of person who likes to know beforehand when legislation or rules and regs will change, as opposed to reading about it afterward, things that might affect my life or my hobby. So SARL has been around for 99 plus years. Your club is a member of them proudly, and I happen to volunteer for our ARRL. You have a similar body, the SARL, and I just happened to find in their images, SARL getting their first 5 megabyte hard drive, 5 megabyte hard drive in 1956. The picture's real. Yeah, 5 megabytes, folks. AMSAT.org. AMSAT.org is the umbrella organization. We were founded in 1969 as a nonprofit. Our mission is to build satellites and to disseminate information about them worldwide. We are international in scope, like yours. You've got a symposium coming up, but AMSAT in South Africa is one of our more busy chapters, and we appreciate all you do for the hobby. And I also volunteer for ARIS, Amateur Radio aboard the International Space Station. These folks not only get equipment aboard the ISS for us, but they also coordinate those wonderful student to ISS contacts where students on the ground get to interview an astronaut who's aboard the ISS. We have performed more than 1,600 of those contacts. And you just think there's 20 or 25 students involved each one, an audience of 50 to 200 people. Think of the lives that have been touched by speaking to an astronaut. So there they are. I know most of you already have these all bookmarked, but sarl.org.za and amsatsa.org.za, and then ARIS, ARISS. Anybody working with Raspberry Pis in South Africa? Yeah, we have two Raspberry Pi. This is an old 3B. We have two. Brian, what you got? Brian, unmute yourself. Did you have a comment?
I've been, yeah, I use Raspberry Pi for ADS-B monitoring. It's not up at the moment, but that's what I've been doing with the
Cool.
Raspberry Pi.
Stuart gave a thumbs up.
Very cool. We have two Raspberry Pi 4s now on board the ISS. One with the wonderful Pi long lens, and the other one with the enhanced Sense hat. I've got the same exact Pi that's on board. I don't have that $4,000 case that was mandated by the participating countries, but students are uploading programs to these and getting data from them. In a few years, you and I are going to have an ARIS Pi, ARISS Pi, that we might be able to access. If you want to see a wonderful marketing, learning, teaching curricula for Pi and students, go to astro-pi.org, astro-pi.org. Just a phenomenal amount of work has gone in to make this accessible to the world. And then who's gone outside early in the morning or at dusk and seen the ISS streak across the sky with your naked eye? A couple of you. It happens a couple times a week. Here I am at my local Best Buy electronics store here in Southern California, 7:15 at night, and I just started saying, there's the ISS, there's the ISS. So everybody got their cell phones out and tried to take pictures of it. A couple of years ago, ISS Commander Reed Weissman gave us some simplex time on FM, and some think that this is one of the more exciting contacts a ham radio operator can make. NA1SS, Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra.
Kilo 6, Lima, Charlie, Sierra. This is NA1SS 2 Alpha, DX.
Commander Weissman, thank you very much for what you're doing for amateur radio this weekend, K6LCS. Now, if that looks like me about 20 pounds ago, using a tape measure beam, a non-duplex radio turned down to 2 watts, working a station that was 450 miles downrange when we started. Is that cool or what? Why did I turn the power down to 2 watts? That's a great question. What's our maximum in amateur radio? It's to use the least amount of power necessary to make it happen. And that little 2-meter tape measure beam's got at least 6 or 7 or 8 dB gain in it. And so I knew we were going to make it. Real fun. And we can do this all the time, all the time. I was also honored to orchestrate one of those ARIS contacts with flight engineer Donald Pettit. Pardon, dear?
Prize winning.
Oh, yes, prize winning. We got an award from the Public Relations Society of America for this. Our city just incorporated Hurricane Valley, so we had the new city council there, we had the school board there. There's our students in the front right who are going to ask their questions. Just a fun day. This occurred at historic Flabob Airport in hangar number 16. It's historic because it is chapter 1 of the Experimental Aircraft Association. We had an interesting interlink with a phone line. The ISS was physically over Europe, so that European ham made the contact while we made the electric contact while we were on voice here. So it was going through Houston to Europe and back, no lag. It was great. It was great. There's our students asking their questions. There's Don Pettit up on the screen. There I am in the back. If you know these projects, these are a year's worth of planning for a 15-minute interview. Well, we had an audio problem. And if NASA knew that I was turning down the pot and turning up the pot for volume, for transmit and receive, they would have said, no, this is Mickey Mouse, we'll try it again next year. But we did it, we pulled it off, and we got ourselves front page coverage, above the fold, color photo in the state's, in California's 6th largest daily newspaper.
NPR.
NPR was there, we had news there.
National Public Radio.
National Public Radio was there. We had a great time. Okay, so what did Keith want me to do today? Let's start this show. Working amateur satellites with your handheld radio. Who am I to do this? Goodness, I've only been a ham since '94. involved in both commercial and amateur radio professionally. The work with Motorola was very, very exciting, doing projects for municipalities, law enforcement, and hospitals. And then on the amateur side, I worked for Ham Radio Outlet here in Anaheim, California for a few years. But I see in your group, you've got a bunch of people who could probably give this presentation. You're working satellites already, but let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Let's demolish the two common preconceptions. South Africa, you need 100 watts. You need that expensive Yaesu rotator, and you need multiple Yagis on your roof. Is that correct to work the amateur satellites? I asked Dr. Fauci.
Absolutely not.
It's not. But is it an expensive proposition to get into this aspect of our hobby? Hey, we all love Jack. Jack, what do you think?
No, it's not.
No, it's not expensive. Most of you already have the necessary equipment. Here's the iconic ICOM W32A, a true full duplex radio. A friend of mine in Texas, let's see, Alan has made more than 9,000 contacts using an HT and an improved whip. That's impressive. What we really like to suggest, though, is that for receiving slow scan TV or for receiving packet, extended whip will be fine. You can receive slow scan TV with your stock duck, but for transmitting, you want something a little bit more directional, a little bit more, with more gain for you. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Keith, I think Keith knew this guy. I think Keith used to do breakfast with this guy once a month. Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon. Knowledge is power. All right, I'm in California. Can anybody tell me what time it is now? Somebody let me know what time it is.
10:30 California and 7:30 in the evening, South Africa.
That's incorrect. What time is it now, please?
Trivia time, sorry.
It is trivia time. Thank you very much. Oscar, South Africa is, Oscar is an acronym. What does Oscar stand for, South Africa? Somebody unmute themselves and tell us what Oscar stands for. My God, Keith, I put them to sleep. Oscar, OSC, it's not that. Oscar, Orbital Satellite Carrying Amateur Radio. Orbital Satellite Carrying Amateur Radio. And there is the first amateur radio satellite. And that looks like a bunch of sheet metal held together with rivets. It's because it is. There's Lance Gunnar, Gunnar, in Central California, holding his baby, Oscar 1. Look at that high-tech componentry. Wow. No magnifying glass needed to. Yeah. Now, without mentioning your age, did anybody hear this project? It just circumvented the Earth a few times, emitting HI in code. HI. Anybody want to admit they heard it? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Look at that Dymo label maker tape. I remember Dymo label makers. $63 in parts. $63 in parts. Remember that as we talk about more modern satellites. And I apologize for this next slide. Way too many words. But just letting you know that in 1961 we had Oscar 1. Oscar 2 failed. Oscar 3 was the first amateur radio satellite with a transponder on board. There have been more than 123 Oscars. Russia's always been involved, and there's always been amateur radio gear aboard the International Space Station. And the astronauts love working it. But they're very busy up there. If you look at the space agency's schedules for the astronauts, there's very little free time. They're not there playing with their Kindles and playing solitaire on their computers. The low Earth orbiting satellites, you and I can work with low power, about 250 to 350 miles above the Earth. They'll be going north to south or south to north. They'll be sun synchronous, these FM crossband repeaters. That's to allow the solar panels to get hit with sun at least twice a day to energize their batteries. Geosynchronous, this is the first club I've talked to that has access to a geosynchronous satellite. Has anybody worked in PL100? It's a 2.4, it's not handheld, it's a 2.4 gig. Its primary mission was commercial, but now it's turned on for, it's right over South Africa, or right over, it's just north of you in the south end of Africa, but geosynchronous satellite.
Stuart says yes.
Stuart says yes?
Yes.
Good. That's Stuart Clark, isn't it?
Yep, correct.
Yeah,
But only
yeah,
narrow band. I'm not on the video section yet. You need a
that's
little
fine.
bit more power and a bigger dish.
Great, great. Yes, it's not, this is the first audience I've talked to who actually had direct access to the geosynchronous satellite. If you'd asked AMSAT in North America 30 years ago, will we ever have a geosynchronous satellite over North America, South America, and Central America, we would have said, no, it's too expensive. Also, the real estate up there is really expensive. It has to be a satellite that's maneuverable, so it's going to be expensive. We don't want to bump into the Super Bowl coverage, so it has to be maneuverable, and it's just very, very expensive. But you know what? We've got a SpaceX board member who's a ham radio operator. This is not an announcement. This is not a proclamation, but it's closer to being reality now. It just needs some money. Just needs some money. You're going to run into a few terms while working satellites. Orbit is simply the path of the satellite around the Earth. Doppler, there is a Doppler accommodation you must make on the 70 centimeter side of these 2-meter 440 crossband repeaters. And I asked Keith to have you all bring your slide rules. Get your slide rules out. We're going to work this here in a second. But let's say the satellite is transmitting there in the middle on 435.300. Do the Doppler as you acquire it, either VFO or make it a memory location. Put in 305 and 310 also. Just 2 steps up. Start acquiring at 310. Turn down to 305, turn down to the center frequency. At what point in the past do you change? Your ear is going to tell you. That's one good reason to work full duplex with a headset or an earpiece. You'll hear how well you're getting into the satellite. And then as you lose it, it'll be slightly below the center frequency. So for a 70 centimeter downlink, acquire above is my mnemonic device. So here is how we do that. You got your slide rules? I don't see any slide rules out, but here's the Doppler shift. Nobody's got a. Keith, did you not ask everybody to bring a slide rule?
I absolutely forgot. My
Oh,
apologies.
Keith, darn, Keith. Well, here, I did it for you. Here's a decent pass of a low Earth orbiting FM bird. Look on 2 meters there, on 145 to 100. It's only plus or minus 3 kilohertz deviation. No big deal. No big deal. But look, on 70 centimeters, plus or minus 20 kilohertz deviation in that signal due to Doppler from horizon to horizon. So that's why whether you're transmitting or receiving on 70 centimeter, you must accommodate for Doppler. I'll show you the some frequency charts later. That's a slide rule reference. This is 2024. Wow.
It still works.
Wow. Okay. LEO is the acronym for low Earth orbiting. So if LEO is low, then HEO must be high Earth orbiting. And oh, Stuart, what are you showing us, Stuart? He's got a slide rule.
All right.
That's a nice.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I've
one
got
you
a
can
slide
read.
rule. It's a big one.
Okay, I've got another project
But
for you
I've
coming
got a
up.
pocket one here. Let me show you that. There you
Stuart's
go.
cool. Stuart's cool.
All
Can you
right.
see that?
Okay,
It's my kind of guy.
keep it out. You're going to do a pass predict. You're going to do a pass prediction for us in a few minutes.
Oh,
Geosynchronous.
Stuart, that's so sexy.
We already talked about that. Uplink is the transmitted signal to the satellite. Downlink is what's coming from it. Footprint is the oval or circular area on Earth where you should be line of sight to the satellite. Some of the software programs and past prediction programs we're going to talk about are usually very conservative with that footprint. But if you're line of sight to it, meaning there's no trees, no buildings, no elevation changes between you and that satellite, like I showed you, I was working the ISS when it's 450 miles downrange. If you can see it without any obstructions, you're going to work it. There's a ground track plot. That's exciting. And some of you are wondering why. I mean, your club's got 2 meter and 70 centimeter analog covered. You're working Echolink. You're doing D-Star. You're doing DMR. Why mess with this 10 or 12 minute pass in the middle of the night? It should not be in anybody's 911 emergency plan because they aren't manned by operators. It's not anything that's should be used for that reason. It's just another aspect of this magnificent hobby we call amateur radio that any licensee can do. It's all technician stuff for us. And confirming, Keith, that these 2 meter and 70 centimeter frequencies are in your country's entry-level amateur license?
Yes, they
Is
are
that correct? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay. Whew, okay. If not, we could hang up. So anyway, there's nothing more exciting for me than to go to a regional park, unfurl my tape measure beam, sit at a table and start working either a terrestrial station or a satellite. It gets families over. You get to learn what they're learning in school about math and STEM and STEAM curricula. Uh, of course, you'll have in your pocket the Sandton Amateur Radio Club membership form, but you get the conversation started and a tape measure beam guaranteed to start a conversation in public. Let's flip forward to 2004 when we launched SO51. This was the most phenomenal marketing of the hobby, technical research satellite we've ever put up. It was so easy to work. It was so we'd go to schools midday and work it. It was just we've been trying to duplicate the is wonderfulness a word? The wonder of it. It costs a little bit more than $63, and this is 20 years ago. There it is, a little CubeSat platform. There's the entire payload. We're right there, front center to the left. There's 3 of the same CubeSat chassis there, but we're the only amateur gear on this payload. We had 2.4 gig, we sent it on 2.4 gig for those who had the Alinco or the Icom little handheld. It had telemetry. It was just a fun, exciting project and lasted a few years longer than we thought it would. It's been gone though, it's been gone, and we're just trying to duplicate that wonderfulness in an educational tool. Again, these will be sun synchronous. When your wife goes on her first trip to Tibet and she's gone for 6 weeks, you can go to some satellite owner's site that's that's transmitting telemetry and download their programs and send what you hear in your country to them in Europe, Russia, or the U.S. So this is battery condition, temperatures. This is just a bunch of cool, geeky stuff. But again, it's a lot of time consumption. So make sure your significant other is not in the same postal code. The Saudis have a satellite up there for us. Okay, show of hands, please. How many have had a HT battery last for 20 years? Any HT batteries last 20 years?
No
This
chance.
satellite's been up there for more than 20 years. Why is it still working? It's not lithium ion. It's a NiCad chemistry in very cold weather. It's a little off frequency. You might need a full 5 watts or 4 watts to get into it with your better antenna, but it's still working. I don't know why it's still working. 250 milliwatts coming down, and it's got quarter wave antennas on it for you, but SO50 is an easy to work crossband repeater in the sky. AO27 died about 10 years ago, and then about 8 years ago, we don't know why, but it came back to life. Not sure why. I mean, cold solder joints don't repair themselves in space, but program AO27, just in case you get a surprise. A few years ago, it was programmed so that it was just on for parts of its passes. But hey, with these modern HTs, you've got 1,000 memories. Yeah, go ahead and put 5 in there for 27, just in case something happens. AO91 is not working as we would like it to be. Please only try this when it's being hit by the sun. Please only try AO91 when in sunlight. That's how dire its battery situation is. So if it's nighttime, please, I know you're tempted, but wait for 50 or the ISS to go over. But 91 only during sunlight hours. Minimum requirements of working these is a single radio. The Yaesu radios, the Yaesu handhelds, most of them have a split frequency mode where you can program 2-meter uplink, 70-centimeter downlink, or just the opposite, in one memory location. That's not duplex though. When you key the mic on the FT60 or the Yaesu, you will never hear anything in the downlink. But if it's off peak hours, not an event happening, not a field day, not a scouting event, not a Saturday afternoon, but in the middle of the night, just treat it like your local repeater. You don't intentionally key the mic and step on someone. You wait for a break in the action, then announce yourself. So Although, I'll say it for the 19th time, it's best if we work at true full duplex. But if you don't have a duplex radio, get another radio, use a scanner for downlink. Um, yeah, so improve your antenna, have a radio, and we'll talk about tracking software here in a second. The Yaesu FT60 is still around. It was introduced 19 years ago, but is still the best non-digital, the best FM voice, 2-meter 440 dual band HT, at least here in the United States. It's got wide frequency range for a receive. It receives AM aircraft properly, a large legible display, 1,000 memories, easy to manually program, and its battery situation really makes it a cut above almost all others. If you get the FBA 25 AA case for it, the AA alkaline case for it, and populate it with 6 alkalines or 6 nickel metal hydrides, you have full transmit power available to you. Now, I'm not a fan of full transmit power, but that's what sets it apart from a bunch of bargain basement radios that they might have a battery case. Well, heck, the THF6A, the tri-bander from Kenwood, you put the AA case on it, you've got 1/3 of a watt for a few minutes. You put the AA case on the Yaesu VX6, I think you have 150 milliwatts for a few minutes. FT60 is a unique little radio, strongest belt clip of any amateur radio HT also. And I know that Ham Radio South Africa still carries these and promotes these. Nice little rig for somebody getting into the hobby. But now you're working, D-Star and DMR. Are you working any Yaesu Fusion at all, Keith? Yaesu System Fusion?
Not personally, but there are amateurs with Yaesu radios, and they probably do work Fusion. I'm just not on Fusion,
Okay.
Clint.
Okay, it's an interesting mode, and Yaesu's got the FT70 for that. But anyway, on the Yaesu rigs, when you program a split frequency memory, like I described, it's on page 28 of the FT60 manual. It's on page, I think, about 17 of the advanced manual for the FT70. But anyway, the plus and minus will show up in your display when you properly stored a split frequency memory. You can program these manually, much easier to do with the software. Improve your antenna. For reception, that Diamond is a very, very popular antenna, but it's always 14 inches long and it's US $50. A better antenna for us in North America, and it's half the price, and I'm sure you can get them from one of your dealers, is the Smiley collapsible antenna. Now, I don't usually recommend putting a metal rod on a delicate SMA connector, but we'll go into that. But the Smiley at half the price outperforms the Diamond at twice the price. And here's the type of mistake you can make with the Smiley. It's got a loading coil in the base, but it prevents damage to your SMA connector. I hate going into this a lot, but I had a lot of hams bring back radios that they actually dropped their radios and broke that delicate SMA connector on all sorts of rigs. So if you're thinking of working satellites, why not, and changing antennas a lot, how about converting that SMA to a BNC? I'd rather see you wear out a $10 adapter than possibly have a Yaesu repair at $60 or have to replace the radio. Except that all metal adapter there on the left, I think that should be outlawed. Oh, really, Clint? Yes, here's why. Imagine putting heavy coax or a heavier antenna on either of these two radios. The one on the left, the arrow is pointing to its metal to metal contact. Any stress you put up above is yanking directly on the center pin of that circuit board connector, and it's going to fail. It's going to fail during your net. It's going to fail during your event. It's going to fail when you least want it to happen. But look on the right. That's a cushion, a rubbery cushion that allows you to make a few mistakes. And Comet makes a couple of these. Ham Radio Outlet South Africa has a couple of these in stock, because there's a lot of difference between how antennas mate to the top of your HT. And I've seen this, Keith, worse in the field. I've seen, and you've seen them too, PL and N down to SMA. That just, I'm a heart patient. I can't get this upset. That's just really disquieting. Okay, it's dinner time in South Africa. If you just had your meal, you might want to pay attention.
The following is not suited for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
Again, if you're weak of heart or just had your meal, please turn away for a second as I show you this. Don't do this. 1, 2, 3. There's a cable, there's an F connector. Someone went to one of our Radio Shacks and bought just one of everything. Don't do this to your radio. Don't do this to the hobby. If they are connected, it's 1/3 of a dB loss each. Don't let some reporter from the paper on field day come and say, oh, this is why they call it amateur radio. Don't do this. Don't do this. Your dealers and your ham fests have these jumper cables. Do something, please, to protect that SMA connector. Okay, I beat that to death. There's the 2 diamond adapters there on the right. When your wife goes on her second trip to Tibet for 6 weeks, you whip out your Motorola signal generating equipment and you start testing HT antennas. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. If you get a new member join and he or she is excited and said, well, let me test HT antennas for the club, just gently grab them by the shoulders and say, let's steer your enthusiasm to some other aspect of the hobby, because as we all learned in adolescence, longer is better. And for working UHF here or working VHF, 17 or 18 inches is where you want your antenna to be for best performance. I remember this. This is an old 1950s ad campaign, Double Your Pleasure. And Keith, I'm not going to charge you any more for this tip tonight, but who would like to double the life of your HT's battery? Who would like to double the length of the HT battery? A couple of you?
Yes.
Okay, here's how you can do it. And you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say. Improve your antenna with that smiley or that diamond. Turn your power down to 2 watts. Turn your power down to half. Because if you're not making it FM voice, line of sight with 2 watts, you're not going to make it with 4 or 5 or 10. Am I correct, Stuart? Stuart's nodding his head yes. So that just saved, because you're transmitting at half power, that just saved you 50% on your battery. Do you want to save even more on your battery? Use a earpiece or a headset. What's the first thing you'll do with the volume control on your radio if you're wearing a headset?
Turn it down.
You're going to turn it down. What eats up our batteries? Keying the mic to transmit and loud audio. So there, I just more than doubled your battery life, and I won't charge you any more for that tonight, Keith. That's a freebie. That's a freebie. Get perpendicular. This is a bumper sticker I had on my truck until I realized I needed to respect my marriage more. But when you go outside in the front yard and key the, where am I? And key your PTT on your HT, you're going to talk to someone across the street, someone down the yard, or your local water tower repeater system. But most of our satellites are not land-based. Most of our satellites are not land-based. So you need to get that. Yes, I did repeat myself. So you need to get that perpendicular relationship in relationship to the orbit of the satellite. It takes me longer to say it than it does just to do it. You're going to be opening up your squelch all the way. It's going to be noisy for a while until you capture it. But as you tune your antenna by just moving it around and getting perpendicular with the satellite's path or orbit, and you'll hear it. You'll hear it. You'll hear a slight dip in the background noise. Then about a minute later, you'll start hearing voices, and then a minute later, you're going to start working it.
I hear voices.
I hear voices. I hear voices. This is, when you get to be 95 years old, folks, these kind of photos just really, this is sentimental to me. This is at Santa Barbara Amateur Radio Club Hamfest. The young man in the red shirt just got his license yesterday, the day before the show. His very first contact on amateur radio was working a satellite with me there at Santa Barbara. Oh, Keith, it gets better. His dad and his grandfather were there. I had 3 generations, each working satellites for the very first time. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. That's the arrow antenna. That's a Stanley hacksaw handle. We'll talk about that in a few minutes to decrease the amount of pain in your elbow. This is the Arrow antenna, the crossband Yagi. I have built a little tray on the mast end, and the Arrow people tell me that anything we do on this end of the mast is not going to affect our signal any. So this will accommodate the radio. The hacksaw handle makes it a pistol grip, makes it all easier. Now, this makes the whole thing heavier, but it's counterbalanced. It's more counterbalanced. Got the HT on the back there, and the antenna. It just makes things much more pleasant. Because 15 years ago, you can see that defect in the middle of my wrist. It took several weeks. I was down at the Sandton medical clinic, and it took about 5 weeks, Keith, but they finally discovered what it was. It was Arrow wrist syndrome. Arrow wrist syndrome. Don't be a victim of Arrow wrist syndrome. So there's my demo antenna. Little cue card at the end. We're listening to ISS slow scan TV. The bottle of Tang is my homage to our space race back in the 60s. That's not full. It's just there for effect. The little white thing on the mast behind my hand, that's just one of those little USB batteries that is powering the smartphone. So yeah, it's all a little bit heavier, but it really is counterbalanced and much easier to maneuver. I don't know what the guy on the roof is doing. Oh, he's always taking pictures, I guess. And then Joe Walsh, of course, has been a fan of amateur radio and a supporter forever. To keep everything together, just use one of those charity wristbands, and it holds everything together for you. Because when you think about it, working amateur radio satellites in the backyard, you've got to have one hand for the radio, one hand for the antenna, one hand for the speaker mic, one hand for the clipboard, one hand for your pencil, one hand for your pina colada, and you'll run out of hands at some point in time. Some hams are using tripods for these antennas. Just make sure it's a heavyweight or medium weight tripod, because they are indeed front heavy. And the Arrow happens to be tapped a 1/4-20 in the handle to accommodate the most common tripods. And where are they? They aren't all geosynchronous like number 100. So here is where we're going to get our slide rules out. Here's your AMSAT team. We are working 24/7 to derive satellite data for you. It's another slide rule reference. And here's how you can do it. It's very easy on your slide rule. Just plug in the epoch time, element set, inclination, RA of node, eccentricity, arc of the perigee, mean motion, mean decay rate, epoch revolution. Don't forget to checksum, Stuart. Don't forget to checksum, and then graph this all out on equatorial graph paper for every pass of every satellite you want to work. Got it?
It'll take you 10 years.
Okay, got it. We got middle school students doing this. Don't worry. We got programs for you. We're all friends here. Anybody still have a little Trio or a little Palm device that they're using? Nope. Okay. Well, if you did, you'd go to batteriesamerica.com on the east coast of the U.S. for good quality replacement batteries. But if you have a Palm device, PocketSat will give you accurate past data. Here is AMSAT Droid, but wait a minute. What's wrong with this picture, folks? We're talking about AO51. The guy in the Van Gogh shirt said these would be sun synchronous. So a pass going east to west will never happen with AO51. This is while we were beta testing this software. It is now known as AMSAT Droid Free. The AMSAT Droid Free in the Google Play Store gives you beautiful maps and representations of your passes, and now it is accurate. There are no Blackberries left. gPredict. This is a phenomenal program. If you're on Linux, it can be ported to Mac, it can be ported to Windows. It runs on a Raspberry, well, I'm running it on a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, might take it to shows. It'll run on a Pi Zero, and it is freeware. It'll also, as you can see, it tracks multiple satellites at once, gorgeous map, and it'll also control some of the popular rotators as you grow into this aspect of the hobby. gPredict, a freebie, absolutely free. My go-to though on my iPad and iPhone is GoSat Watch. Go
We have a
Sat.
question.
We have a question. Go with, somebody unmute themselves and go with the question.
MSAT droid free, can it control rotator and radio?
That's an excellent question. I do not know if it will control rotators for you or radio control. I know HRD, Ham Radio Deluxe does. Mac Doppler Pro for your Mac folks does. SAT PC 32 for Windows will. There are scores of programs for tracking satellites and doing what you want to do. I only have 5 or 6 here that I promote because I know them. I can get answers from the authors if I need it, and they're well supported. GoSat Watch was written by a Canadian ham. About 10 years ago, NASA changed the manner by which we acquired ISS past data. This gentleman had this program rewritten and uploaded to the Apple Store or the Apple App Store within 3 weeks. That's the responsive author. This is not a freebie. GoSat Watch is $10, but check it out. It's worth the investment. It's a wonderful program. If you have a Windows machine, SAT PC 32 is a commercial program. Here's where you get radio control and rotator control for Windows. Nova for Windows breaks all the rules of my recommendations because it's no longer supported. It hasn't been updated in 15, 17 years. But if you have a Windows 98 machine, an older Windows machine, I know a couple people who got it on Windows 10 successfully, but I just don't recommend it. But it's a freebie now. It used to be commercial. It's free with the code I've got on my website for you. And then, any Mac people in South Africa?
There's a number of them, I'm sure. Clint?
Outstanding. So, I'm sorry, how tacky is this? Look at this low-res Jiffy thing I have for Windows, and Mac Doppler Pro in all of its glory. Also a commercial program, and being a member of AMSAT, if you buy this from AMSAT North America, you get a little discount on it. But Mac Doppler Pro is a full-featured commercial program. It just is gorgeous. All right, it's 7 o'clock somewhere on the planet. Who has the final Jeopardy response this evening?
Two says
All right, unmute yourselves and give us the final Jeopardy response.
Zeiss is incorrect.
Anyone?
Kevin's got it.
Kevin?
However, it is not in the form of a question.
Kevin, it must be in the form of a question. Kevin got it. Who is Johnny Kepler? Johannes Kepler. This is the first time in my life I knew Final Jeopardy. I've been watching it for several decades. No. Just think of that white area, that white panel, as being a mathematical statement of the orbit of a satellite. And at midnight tonight, your time, I'm going to do a little special Zoom meeting where we can decode this. If you can come back at midnight, we'll do that. But Johannes Kepler, Keplerian elements. And I have to thank Sony Entertainment Network. I have to play that entire 30-second song without interruption. That's part of my licensing agreement. So thank you, Sony. Here's another one. No music. Around since 1998, it is now roughly the length of a football field and travels at 5 miles per second. No, it's not you on the highway. It is our International Space Station. Free info online, heavensabove.com, heavens-above.com for satellite passes, n2yo.com, and good old amsat.org. The first two will give you beautiful graphic representations, maps and things. The AMS like this. The AMSAT site gives you this. Okay. What you're looking for, the maximum elevation column. Look for maximum elevation. You don't want to work a 1 degree pass, a 5 degree pass while you're starting. And I see a 67 there. Siri, let's hone in on the 67. There we go. All right, so there's a decent pass. These are UTC times. So this is actually 9 o'clock at night, your time, 2/3 of the way up the sky. going right over Keith's house.
Ooh.
This is cool. This is cool. Um, acquire it. And this is not north to south, south to north. This is not some synchronous. I'll show you the path of the ISS in a second, or the orbit. But this is an extremely interesting pass. Packet is not on right now, but you will hear people on the crossband repeater. So use whatever, when you start out, please use two sources for pass info. If they both agree, you're probably okay. The errors I have made are putting the wrong time of day in, or the wrong location. Some of those programs will default to the author's location until you register or whatever. Just make sure that both your paths are the same. So you just interpreted this chart of gobbledygook into a pass. Look for the highest elevation passes, and then make sure with the AMSAT page that you back out for Greenwich Mean Time. Here is what the ISS orbit looks like. So it does that about every 2 hours. So it goes over South Africa several times a day. And then the visible passes, some programs let you know when you'll be able to actually see it. Of course, you're not seeing it. You're seeing the sun reflect off it early morning or late in the afternoon. There's a little widget on my website that N2IO wrote for me. It shows you where the ISS 91 and SO50 are right now, so you can make sure everything is square with your setup. And general procedures: listen, monitor the downlink, open up the squelch. And here's a weird one. If you can't hear it, don't key the mic. Now, SO50 is the exception, but you know AO27 is being worked on. You know that 92 isn't 100%, but there are other AMSAT South Africa folks who know what's up and running, and I'm sure some of you in the club are intimate with it. Here in Southern California, I just say, just wait for someone else you hear someone else, and then get into it. Be courteous and quick. It might be just an exchange of grid square and signal strength, and that might be it. Especially on the weekends, there are a lot of hams going after certificates and grid squares. So about that Thursday night at 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night pass, you might be able to discuss Johannesburg weather or something.
Can they get postcards from Bruce?
Yes, yes. Just, I'm going to mention it later, but just hearing the ISS, just hearing a packet burst, or just hearing the crossband repeater qualifies you for that gorgeous ISS QSL card. And I'll talk about that in a second. How far can you go with these? This is by no means a record. I didn't expect to do this. It was only a 4-degree elevation pass for me on the West Coast, but 2,000 miles. When the footprint in the upper right there says I was only going to go 500 miles. Again, I can't reproduce this every night, but it's not. There's much more longer communications made than just this. But yeah, if you're line of sight, and it's we're both using FT60s, and we're each using the Arrow antenna for this. All right, South Africa. What is your grid square there? Everybody know their grid square?
Kilo Golf 34 X-ray Alpha.
Is it X-ray alpha or alpha X-ray?
X-ray Alpha. Kilo Golf 34 X-ray Alpha.
Okay. But KG43, Kilo Golf 43?
No, mine, I'm at Kilo Golf 34.
KG, it's not KG43?
No, KG 34. But KG 43 is very close. We intersect. So that's fine. There's a lot of people in KG 43 right next to me.
Well, whatever your grid square is, that's what you need to know. And I know your club already educates and promotes using the international phonetics. This is not King George. It's Kilo Golf. And that's a familiar repeater site, isn't it?
That certainly is. And that is in
Isn't that
Kilo
beautiful?
Golf 43.
Isn't that
Yep.
beautiful? And what is straight in the background? What city is right in the background of this?
I think you're looking towards the Which way are we aiming here?
There's a school to the left.
Yeah, there's a
Or
school on the
park.
left-hand side. I think you're looking towards the Holly Beersport area or Brits area, but that's in the
Okay,
distance.
very cool, very cool. We already talked about that. I do have a Kenwood THD 72, but I don't take it to shows. I want to let people know they can do it with equipment that doesn't cost a ton. So I'll take an FT60 with me, the tape measure beam or the arrow antenna, and something to protect my SMA connector. Here's the programming for SO50. Most satellites require a tone on transmit, a tone on transmit, leave, receive, open, leave, receive, open. So they're in the middle there, number 206. Are we accommodating for Doppler on 2 meter? No, we're not. So transmit is going to stay the same. Reception is going to change though. The middle of the, it's a little off, it's a little off frequency. It's 436, 797, but 795 is close enough. Acquire it slightly above. Acquire it at 795, 800 and 805. Then work down as you lose it to 790. Is that a typo? Is there a 74.4 on your screen, dude?
No, I caught that.
Anybody know what 74.4 is doing there?
I think it's the activation tone, if I recall, Clint.
You are absolutely correct. Let's say you've worked this a few times and you can't sleep at night. You go into the shack and you see an SO50 is going over you at 11:30 tonight. You get your gear on, put your jacket on, go in the backyard, key the mic up, and it's not there. Turn your radio to your pre-programmed channel with 74.4, key the mic, and turn on its 10-minute timer. You become the control operator of a satellite. How cool is that? You think it wasn't scary the first time I did that, Keith? I thought, oh God, it's going to crash into my koi pond. The handcuffs at AMSAT are going to be tight. But if you know it's there because you've worked it before, no one else is on, your fellow hams around the region might not know how to turn it on. You do. 74.4. Here's AO91. We are receiving on 2 meter, and we're not accommodating for Doppler on reception. But when you transmit, you must accommodate for Doppler on the 70 centimeter side. And again, 91 only in daylight hours. 92 is gone, but 91 only during daylight hours. So let's put this all together. We're almost through with part one. You know when the satellite's going to be there. You know where it's going to be in the sky. You know your grid square and your radio is programmed. Wait for a break in the action, then key your mic. Kilo 6, Lima Charlie Sierra, Kilo Golf 4-3, or 3-4. And sometimes I'll say handheld or demo. It's only a third of a second of airtime. And if you say handheld to your region, it's going to let fellow AMSATers know that, hey, here's somebody with low power, let's let them in. If you say demo, that tells your fellow hams that this ham's in front of a group, let's let them in. You're going to find, I think you're going to find in South Africa that about the same percentage of hams, about 90% of them are just fine people. Intentional interference isn't really happening out here. And boy, there sure is a possibility of that with those really low dollar HTs that are out there. We have all made mistakes. We have all accidentally stepped on someone. We have all keyed the mic, waited for a response, but forgot to turn our volume up. We've all made these mistakes. No one's gonna be knocking at your door. If we get your call sign during the communication, though, I will email you, say, you sounded great, try this. You're going to find the AMSAT folks to be really helpful people. So don't let mic fright. I know most of you aren't, but don't let mic fright get in the way of this. And then when you hear a satellite, or not hear one, when you think you should have heard one, it is our responsibility to report that data to the AMSAT Live Oscar Satellite Status page. Just know that blue is good, red is not. So here we have the top arrow is AO91. Yes and no. Yes and no. But look at the second arrow is ISS. The top row is data. That's the packet radio in the Russian service module. It is misconfigured right now. It's not going to be working. That's why it's all red across there. But look at the crossband repeater in the Columbus module. FM crossband repeater just blue all the way across. The white arrow is pointing to PO101. It's also a crossband repeater, but it's on a weird schedule. you have to go to its Twitter feed and find out when it's going to be on. So it just adds another step or another barrier to as opposed to a 24/7 satellite for you. But I'll show you where that is. Then SO50 there at the bottom, blue all the way across, just wonderful to work. If you see something like this with the ISS, where the red there on both machines, ISS ham gear will be turned off during an EVA, during a spacewalk, or when there's a mission heading towards it or a mission leaving it. It's all scheduled. They want to be in complete control of energy consumption and sparks. So yeah, it'll be off intentionally when there's a spacewalk or missions heading to or from it. And adding your report on this page is easy. It has a drop-down list of the satellites. You mark whether it was active or not. It reverts to the last 15-minute time period, and ZS1ZAN. That's a familiar call sign. QRZ. Who is this? Ah, all right. Nico, you were working SO50 a couple days ago. Very cool. Here's the Twitter feed for PO101, and this is yesterday's, but you have to go to the Twitter feed and find out when it's going to be operational. Slow scan TV projects. Slow scan TV from the ISS can be as easy to receive, pun intended, by holding up your handheld to your smartphone that has a $3 app on it. No Windows drivers, no interconnecting cables. I caught this image with my FT60 stock antenna, because SSTV is about 10 or 12 watts coming down, maybe 15 watts coming down. Now, in the very middle of this, on the guy's white t-shirt, you see those two little blips, those two little interference blips. If you do this without cabling, the acoustic way that I just mentioned, leave the dog in the house. That was our dear dog. She barked twice. He barked twice while I was doing that. These are 120-second transmissions, so you're listening for 120 seconds. But I will love that photo just for that reason. But Russia and the U.S. run several projects a year. Do not be upset when Russians have a project and it is Russia-centric and only going on over Russia. They're proud of their space program. Usually the U.S. projects are worldwide, but don't take it as a slight if Russia does an event or two and it's just over their country. You don't take it as anything political or anything as a slight. Here's an image from about 5 years ago. Ah, shoot. I'm sorry, I thought I turned this off. Hold on a second. Yeah, what do you want? Clint, talk more about the... Oh, okay, let's talk more about the ISS. The ISS, there is our antenna on the Columbus module.
Oh, man.
Pardon?
I wish it was me.
Okay, there's our 2-meter 440 antenna on the Columbus module. There are our 3 antennas on the service module, the Russian service module. There's a page at ARIS telling you what the status is on the ham gear. This is telling you that the Columbus module is configured, but the packet radio is misconfigured. We'll get that on for you next couple of weeks. Here are the ISS frequencies. You don't write any of this down. It's all on the front page of my website. The ISS crossband repeater, that uplink is that weird frequency, 145.99, 145.99, and it wants that tone on the uplink. But if you're just going to go out and listen to it tonight, the downlink is 437.800, 437.800, and bump it up to 805 or 810 as you acquire it. And when it's straight over you or time of closest approach, it'll be right there on 437.800 for you. And there's where satellite 100 is. And Stuart can explain how that works and what equipment he's got set up for that. But it can be a marvelous tool. I'm thinking of American Red Cross work or disaster relief or weather-related emergencies. Again, not doable with your handheld radio, but having a geosynchronous satellite over your region, it can be a wonderful, wonderful resource. That is it for part 1 Anybody have any questions I could try to answer? Just unmute and ask away. Beautiful, you have anything in the chat room for us?
Stuart gave me a different grid square.
Okay.
No questions.
Okay. If you go to my website, work-sat.com, go to the bottom of the front page, there's satellite show citations, and that'll give you a list of everything we talked about tonight in the order in which it was presented. Let's get out of here and stop share. Okay, there we are. Anybody have any questions? I know a lot of you are already doing this. Anybody here who hasn't done this yet and might be interested in listening to the ISS go over tonight or tomorrow?